Unit 7, Day 1 notes. We're going to start looking at how to translate or slide left, right, up, or down any function that we have. So even if it was Algebra 1 and we had a line and we wanted to slide it up or down, left or right, we could do something to the equation to actually make the graph simply translate or slide in one direction. So let's take a look at that right now. If we want to move vertically, which means either up or down, then when you have your function f of x, whatever that function is, if you add or subtract a constant, and notice that it's outside of these parentheses. If it's added or subtracted outside of the parentheses that hold x, then it's going to affect the y. If it's not with x, it affects y. So that means the y-axis goes up and down. It's vertical. So if k is positive, then we are going to move up k units. If k is negative, then we are going to move down k units. Okay? Horizontal, left to right. Now remember, the x-axis is horizontal. So if we, inside of the parentheses or any grouping symbol, it could be a square root, it could be parentheses, it could be brackets, right? Whatever it is, if in with the x, we add or subtract a constant, then we are either going to be sliding the graph left or right. And the rule is here, that if there is a plus c, then we are moving c units to the left. If it is x minus a number, then we're going to move that many units to the right. Okay? Now, your first instinct may say, okay, on the number line, positive means to the right and negative means to the left, and you would be correct. In with the x, though, it's x minus the number that's shifting it. So if you don't want to think too much about it, that's fine, but it does make sense if you think of it as x plus 2 and then set an equals 0 behind it. You say, okay, x must be negative 2. All right. Again, if you don't care about the y, or if that messes you up a little bit, that's fine. Just remember, x plus c moves left c units. X minus c moves right c units. Okay. The y goes up and down like you think it would. Plus means up, minus goes down. All right, so let's look at a couple of questions here. Okay, let's look at question number 1. We are going to take this parabola, which is y equals x squared, and we're going to translate it by putting a minus 2 inside the parentheses with the x. Now, because it's with the x, it's going to either move it left or right. Well, look right up here. It says minus 2, and this is minus c. So remember, minus with an x means it's going to go to the right. So that means every single point that they give you on this graph moves 2 units to the right. Okay, so we are translating everything 2 units to the right. So we're going to take 0, 0, which is your vertex here. We're going to go 2 units to the right. We're going to take this point here, negative 1, 1, and we're going to move it 2 units to the right, which happens to be on top of 1, 1. Then we're going to take 1, 1, move it 2 units to the right, and it goes to 3, 1. We're going to take negative 2, 4, move it 2 units to the right, and we're going to get to 0, 4. Okay. All right, so we have some of them there. And finally, we're going to take the point that they gave us 2, 4, move that 0.2 units to the right. I'm going to put us here at 4, 4. So when we connect our dots with a nice smooth curve, we have taken the f of x, the original function, which was x squared, and we have translated it 2 units to the right so that the graph is now x minus 2 squared. Right, let's look at question 2. Question 2, again, they gave us the parent function x squared, which has a vertex right here at 0, 0. Right, and then what did they do? They said, we're going to translate a little bit. We're going to put a +1 in this equation. Now, is the +1 in with parentheses, like the first question? No, the +1 is not inside with the x. It's not x plus 1 squared. That's not what we're working with here. What we're working with is a +1 that's outside the parentheses, and therefore, we're going to look back at this rule here, where if we add or subtract a number outside of the x's parentheses, we're going to go either up or down, because if it's not in with the x, it affects y. So +1 tells me that I'm going to translate up 1 unit. Okay, so all 5 of these points right here, we're going to move all of them up 1 unit. So let's just do that. So let's take this point right here. That point is at -2, 4. Now it's going to be -2, 5. Let's take the point -1, 1. We're going to move it up 1 unit. Now it's going to be -1, 2. Let's take 0, 0. Move it up 1 unit. It's at 0, 1. Let's take 1, 1. Move it up 1. It's at 1, 2. And then let's take 2, 4. Move it up 1. And it is at 2, 5. Let's draw a nice smooth curve through all of these. It's kind of why I'm not an art teacher or penmanship teacher. But anyway, so we have taken all of the points that were given to us, translated them up 1 unit, and then connected the dots with a smooth curve, which gives us a graph that has been translated up 1 unit. So it used to be x squared, now it's x squared plus 1. Okay, let's scoot down the page. So now we're going to continue to translate, but instead of parabolas, the little x squareds with the u's, now we're going to look at an absolute value and a cubic. So we have an absolute value, which always looks like a v. Right? You did a lot of that back in unit 2. So the graph of f of x is shown. Okay? So f of x is here in green, and it goes forever in those directions. And then we have to look at this translation. Y equals f of x minus 3. So ask yourself, is the minus 3 in with the x, or is it outside with the y? And hopefully you can see that the parentheses have just the x. The minus 3 is not in with the x. The minus 3 is going to affect your y. So if you go back to the top of the page, say, okay, it affects the y, so it's either going to go up or down. Okay, well, it's minus 3, so it's going down. So what we need to do is we need to identify some points. Well, I can see that the vertex there is easy to identify, -2, 0. I'm going to look at some other points that go right through the corner of the grid. So like at 0, -2, that one is a nice point where you have 2 whole numbers, right, that you can use. Also -4, -2 looks like a really easy point to look at right there. Right? We could use a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them here. But let's take those and let's move them all down 3 units. Okay, let's translate them. So we're going to take the vertex, this guy right here, translate him down 3. 1, 2, 3. Cha-ching. And then let's take this guy and this guy, translate them down 3 units. And then we can take this point and translate them down 3 units. Okay, connect the dots. Okay. Notice that translating, just like back in geometry, when we did translations in Unit 6, translating does not flip it. Translation doesn't turn it. Translation doesn't make it bigger or smaller. It just slides it. So it is the green graph moved down 3 units. Okay, so let's quickly look over here at this red graph. This red graph is your f of x. Okay, it looks like a nice little funky cubic function, but we're going to take this function and we're going to translate it 3 units. Now, is the 3 in the parentheses with the x, or is it outside with the y? Well, it's right in there with the x. So this plus 3, if you go back to your very first page here, that plus 3 being inside of the parentheses with your x, the plus means we're moving left. Okay, so we're going to move 3 units to the left. So each of these points, each of these dots, we're going to move 3 units left, and that will translate our entire graph 3 units left. So 1, 2, 3, I'll get the bottom guy. 1, 2, 3 right here. 1, 2, 3, this fella, and then 1, 2, 3 for the top guy. Okay, and again, we will connect the dots. Okay, same type of a graph, just moved 3 units to the left. Right. Next page. So we just did 1-step translating, either left or right or up or down. Now we're going to do 2-step translating. Okay, we'll do a little 2-step for those of you that are into dancing. So we may go left and up. We may go right and down. We may, do a combination of left up, right down, or we could go left up, right down. We could do 2 steps. Doesn't really matter. Let's look at this first example. And they gave us y equals x squared, which is a nice parabola. Now, if we're going to translate this, let's look at what they gave us for a new equation. They gave us a +1 that's inside the parentheses with the x. So what does that tell us? That tells us right there that we're going to be translating 1 unit to the left. And now there's a +4 outside of the parentheses. So that +4 tells us we are going to be translating 4 units up. So just like with the previous questions, we're going to use all of the dots, all of the points that they gave us, and we're going to do our translating to those points. We're just going to do 2 things to each point. We're going to go left 1 and up 4. So let's do that. So let's take this fella right over here. We're going to go left 1, up 4, and he'll be right about there. Okay, now let's take this guy. Left 1, 4. Okay, let's take the vertex. Left 1, 4. Take this one. Left 1, 4. And then the last guy, left 1, up 4. Connect your dots with the same basic smooth curve as the original graph was. We can do a little better than that, I hope. That's not too bad. Okay, so you've taken your original graph, and it'll be easy when you're dragging it on Alex. You're just going to drag the entire graph left 1 unit and up 4 units, and you won't have to worry about being able to draw a pretty parabola like this, right? But we should be able to do this on our notes, though. So let's look at this next question. I'm going to give us some room on this. Okay, so here's our original. Our original here is the square root of x. It's one of the parent functions that are on my classroom wall. Oh, my classroom. All right, so that's what their parent function looks like. Then we're going to take that parent function and we're going to translate it with these plus and minus, or in this case, just 2 minuses. Okay, so 2 subtraction symbols. Well, what does the -1 tell me? The -1 tells me I'm going to go 1 unit. And because it's in with the x, okay, you say, well, there's no parentheses. Remember, I said any grouping symbol. It could be a square root symbol like this one. So there's a square root. Whatever is under it with the x is inside with the x. So that -1 is with the x. So that's going to be, because it's minus and with the x, it's going to be 1 unit to the right. And this -3, because it's outside of the x and the grouping symbol, it's going to affect the y. -3 affecting the y tells me I'm going to go 3 units, and it's going to go down. Down. All right. So let's take each of these 3 points that they have given us in the parent function, and let's translate each point 1 unit right and 3 units down. So let's take the starting point. 1 unit right, 3 units down. Take the second point. 1 unit right, 3 units down. This last point. 1 unit right, 3 units down. Okay. And let's connect those dots. We have translated 2 steps to this function. All right, so last thing we're going to look at, we're going to go down here to writing an equation, okay, after they give you the graph. So before, they gave us some functions, and then they did some pluses, minuses in there, and they said, you make the graph. This time they give you the graph and they say, give us the function. All right, so let's look at these examples. So it says the graph of f is translated a nice whole number of units horizontally and vertically to obtain g. It's just another name for the other function. All right, so if f of x is negative root x, okay, then g of x. Well, let's copy down. Let's copy down f without the translation. And then let's add the translation. I'll just add it in a different color to make it stand out a little bit more. Let's add it, let's go Christmassy. Let's go green, red and green, sweet. All right. So we have the parent function. It looks the same as f. This is the same as f. But what happened to each of these points? Well, because they've told you it's translated, all you need to do is find 2 points that correspond. And look, all you have to do is look at the starting points. They obviously are the 2 points that correspond to each other. Starting point for G, starting point for F. So how do you go from F to G? Well, it looks like they went 2 units to the right, and it looks like they went 4 units up. So 2 units to the right. Remember, in with the X is right, left. So minus 2 will get us 2 units to the right. So in with the x under the square root, we're going to put the minus 2. Now, up 4. Up is going to be a y, so it's going to be outside of the square root. And because it's up, it's plus. That's your answer. That's all you've done. You've done taking the original function, the parent function, and you said, what did they do to it? They moved it 2 to the right. They moved it up 4. And that is my g function. Okay, simple. Good. Let's look at this last one. Okay, so f of x is another parabola. It's negative 1/2 x squared. Okay. Negative, so it's going down. 1/2 widens it out. X squared, it's a little U-y thing, okay, called a parabola. So let's look at g. So one more time. I'm going to take g of x, and I'm going to start with f of x. Okay, this was f of x. So I'm going to copy that first. Now I know that it went left, right. So for that x squared, I'm going to give myself some parentheses. Okay, and I'm going to give myself a little space. I know I'm going to write something in there with the x. Okay, because if I wanted to, back up here, negative 1/2 x squared, you could put parentheses around the x. It's not going to change it a bit. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing here, just so that it'll be easier for me to translate it. All right, so we'll go with green again. All right, so what translations happened from F to G? And they've given you the 2 points that correspond. The vertex from F is nice, it's right at 0, 0. And the vertex at G is at 2, 4. So guess what? We're going 2 to the right and up 4 again, just like we did over here. So 2 to the right means we're going to go minus 2 with the x. That's 2 to the right. And then up 4 means we're going to go plus 4 outside of the parentheses or any grouping symbol that has an x. You're done. Okay. Hope you liked that. Hope it was logical and the steps made sense to you. I encourage you to go back, rewatch, pause it, right? As many times as you need to, play along with it, and take your time on the practice. Refer back to your notes, and if you have questions, let me know.